gritty, because as we sort of chit chat away, let's ask that $1 million question. Why is representation in the media so important? Maybe Meg, you want to kick us off with that?
I mean, it's definitely very important in lots of different industries, but I've noticed that it is super important in the gaming industry, especially post-COVID. There's a lot of women and marginalised genders that have sort of found gaming through COVID and through lockdown, myself included, and I just feel like it was something that previously wasn't a space that was normalised for females and marginalised genders. So it's very, very exciting to now see people talking about it and also representing. And yeah, I just think that because of that, I am now seeing so many more women and marginalised genders come into the space, which is great. And so many different communities as well being created to sort of create a safe, comfortable space for lots of different people as well. So yeah, it's very, very important to keep people safe, keep people comfortable, give them a place to go if they need to, create friends, make friends, create community, and yeah, it's just something that is, if we didn't have it, without it, I think it would be a very sort of bland space in a way. There wouldn't be much sort of going for it, in my opinion.
Well, I'm just going to pick up on that communities thing, which is, I think, is really cool, because I think if we're in esports, obviously that's an online space. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me as a social media journalist, I also kind of a lot of the time live in online space as well. And I think the really cool thing about representation now is that those communities can exist and you can connect with people that you couldn't have even connected with before, whether it be through esports, whether it be through social media, because obviously the geographical barriers aren't there anymore. So there's a great opportunity here for different voices to come together to build that community. Esports is one of them. Social media is another one as well. I'll come to you, Suzie, and see if you have any thoughts as well.
Yeah, like you said, if it being bland, it would just be boring if everybody was the same, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's why it's important to like show that there are different people who do these different roles in broadcasting, in the media, and you can see like people lighting up when they see somebody who kind of represents them a little bit. Oh, that's you know, we've never seen a black woman do this before. That's brilliant. You know, it gives me the hope that I can do this someday as well if I really want to. I think it's really important that we have representation, not just women, but all different races, ages, locations, you know, accents. I know I'm sitting here with you two with my Geordie accent, so yeah, it's good. Maybe somebody sees us and go, oh, a caster with a Geordie accent, we like that, you know. So it's really important to get as much representation for as much different people out there. So the people can connect, different people can connect with the people that they see on TV. It's not all just the same people all the time who just all look the same, all sound the same, you know.
And building on that point, really, it's not just about obviously seeing is really important because, you know, seeing is believing, to use the old phrase, but it actually can help shape the society we live in as well, because if people can understand people's perspectives, if they can listen to more diverse voices, you can be connected with people, again, you wouldn't ordinarily be connected, you can better empathise, you can better understand, and it actually fosters a more inclusive space as well. So even, you know, you might not think by, you know, gaming or connecting with people that you might not ordinarily connect with, or me doing my role as a journalist, that you're actually building a different kind of society where those sort of people are coming together in a different space.
100%.
So let's talk about, actually, just before we get really deep in, what representation really means. And obviously we've spoken about women, people of colour, but it's also, I guess, LGBTQ. You know, maybe with both your experiences in esports, which obviously I can't really speak to, what does representation really mean in esports, and kind of what's kind of going on in that space at the moment? What's being done to foster that representation and inclusivity?
There could be more. I mean, it is getting better. I still think there's a lot of space for, you know, tournaments and just events as well, networking events. There's a couple I've been to this year, but I often find that there's a lot more that aren't targeted towards sort of women and LGBTQ people. So there's definitely more to be done, but just to highlight a few things for me that have been really good this year in esports. There is Game Changers in the main game that I play, Valorant, which is a really, really fantastic tournament. Again, it's quite new, but it is giving sort of women and marginalised genders opportunities to sort of be showcased and highlighted competitively, which I think is amazing. One event as well and community that I want to shout out is Black Twitch UK, who you'll meet Cassie later, who actually is like a co-founder of it. And they held earlier this year sort of a networking event for women in the industry. And it was so amazing and so motivating because I think what a lot of women and LGBTQ people will kind of sympathise and understand is that it can be really difficult sometimes. Like you are essentially a lot of the time justifying why you belong in the space and why you deserve a space and a voice. And that can be really exhausting after a while, speaking about several times. So to have those kind of events and opportunities to go and network and meet other people who are also going through the same thing and answering the same questions and kind of sort of dealing with the same stuff is really comforting and also motivating because you can kind of come up with solutions together, you can network, you can talk, you can sort of brainstorm other amazing things and opportunities that could come along sort of in the future and happen. So yeah, I think there is lots being done, but there is still more, in my opinion, that could also be done like that.
Maybe, Suzie, you can pick up on what more needs to be done. Because again, we'll focus a lot on the positives during this conversation, but we're not wanting to bury our heads in the sand with things that clearly aren't where they need to be yet.
There is a lot more that can be done. I mean, we are doing some great things at the moment, but there's always more that can be done, isn't there? As long as women, marginalised genders do feel like they don't always belong, there's always improvements that can be made. And I don't think, unfortunately, we are doing things at the top level, with British esports, women in esports, Game Changers, things like that. But it's like the underlying causes, like so much negativity, toxicity in the gaming world, in esports, and that doesn't go away unless people actively try and stamp it out. So I think if you see it, call it out, tell people that's not okay to do, especially if you're an educator or if you have children playing games or anything like that. Anything that just make sure you get it from the root, and hopefully eventually that'll work its way up and people can play happy and be safe.
100%. And I do think a lot of that as well comes down to like holding people accountable. Like I've noticed it a lot more with sort of brands, and we kind of spoke about this a little bit, but about how with social media nowadays, like you have to show up, you have to include people, and that's because people on social media, they won't hold back, they will hold you accountable, they will call you out if you aren't being diverse, if you're not being inclusive. And so that is a great thing that now I think a lot of companies and brands and people who are starting up these things for people like us in the industry is they have to show up and they have to do it and they have to get it right. And if they don't, they will know and they will hear about it.
Well, as you say, yeah, we had this conversation before actually we jumped on this chat, and we were talking about how young people now, which is so cool, they're so much more discerning in terms of the content they consume, who they want to connect with online, what brands they want to use. And I think brands are probably a little bit nervous because they're realizing that, there are a lot of young people out there that aren't going to go back to them and use them again if they're not representing their own community voice, and even people are not from a certain community, because let's face it, we can't all represent everyone, and nor should we, because we shouldn't be speaking on behalf of other communities. But we do have a role ourselves to try and platform those voices and empathise with those voices. And I just want to talk, stepping away slightly from esports, in case the people at home aren't in that world, and media more broadly, and that front-facing role. A lot of people focus on the front-facing roles in media. Why is it so important to have that representation front-facing? Because I think I want to make a little point about it's not just all about front-facing, but let's start with, why is it so important to see representation on our screens?
Yeah, like I said before, it's all about that connection that people make. You want to see a part of yourself being actually represented. You don't want to say, oh, it's the same, people every time, same type of people, same accent, same age, same ethnicity, same gender. You want to see that diversity, because there could be a kid there watching who is maybe, thinking about coming out as gay or trans or anything like that, or just a girl who just has been put down all her life and just been trying to be a good gamer and thinks, oh, I would really like to do that, but there's no women who do it. But then you see one on screen and you're like, I can do it. That could be me in the future. And is that representation that we need to give people the encouragement to take over this industry, because we're not going to be here forever. We need the new generation to come up and do it, and we need to give them that encouragement to do it as well by being there, by being visible.
It's so important, like especially with my live streaming. I've noticed I'm quite a loud woman, I'm quite proud, and I will sort of talk about the things that I want to talk about, that I find important. Nothing sort of in my live stream is very taboo. Like we talk about sort of lots of different subjects that are important to different people and are very sort of inspiring as well to those in my community who may be slightly younger, who are sort of 16 to 20 and are just sort of getting into the industry and maybe are quite nervous and aren't as confident in talking about these things or talking to people about these things. So for me, something I've noticed, that having a safe space online with my face and talking about these things has really helped people. And honestly, it's the only thing that kind of keeps me going sometimes, is when I hear from these young women who are like, Meg, I use my microphone in a game today. And that sounds like really small to some people, but it's really difficult sometimes for women to talk in gaming, because the minute that they hear a female voice, they're like, oh, woman, go back to the kitchen, is a normal one you kind of get, which is so ridiculous. But just by hearing these voices in the game, it sort of normalizes sort of women and LGBTQ plus people being in the space, and people hear those voices and they'll have to get used to it. It has to become normal, because it is normal. It's the thing now. So just by sort of being motivational and just inspiring younger women as well, like it is so amazing to sort of hear them come to me and be like, I use my microphone. I told a guy today to off, whatever, like when he told me that I shouldn't play the game because I was a woman, and I'm like, you go girl, like that is so cool to hear that, women are speaking up and they're not holding back anymore.
I think that shows how far obviously things have come, but I also think obviously, in 10 years time, you would hope that you're not going to get any messages from women, say, messaging you being like, oh, I managed to speak up in whatever situation.
Just be normal.
I didn't just be normal. I mean, in my position as a journalist, I can say the same thing, where sometimes I will publish a story and get a message back from a contributor from, a diverse community or somewhere else in the world that just don't get the opportunity to speak to the media, and they'll say, oh my gosh, thank you, and no one's ever told my story. And obviously that, as a journalist, it's like the most important thing you can ever sort of receive is feedback, never mind any feedback you get, just, critical analysis of the piece you put out. But if someone is thanking you for putting across their story, that means a lot. I mean, having said that, the fact they are feeling like they need to thank you clearly shows there's still more work to be done.
Yeah.
But the point I also wanted to make was that everyone obviously does talk about front-facing roles, and that's really important. I mean, I'm a reporter, presenter, as well as I produce my own work as well. But it's also important to have the brains and the particularly in journalism, in media, the brains, the people that are writing the scripts, the people that are finding the stories. They also need to be from diverse backgrounds. They need to be different voices, because ultimately, anyone can sit in front of a camera and say, and tell you, the rundown of the top 5 stories today. But if those stories aren't speaking to the different communities, those different communities still feel disenfranchised. They feel disconnected from the world. Naturally, it's kind of like sticking plaster on a problem, really. So I think that's why in media there needs to be a much more deeper look at perhaps what we mean by representation. It's not just about who's standing in front of the camera.
I don't know about you guys as well, but now you can always tell if something was written by not the person that should have written it.
Yeah.
It is so obvious. And I think, again, this is because of just being online and people really reading into things and understanding now that some things are written by people that shouldn't be, and you can tell. And I think it's really important now that, if you are writing a piece or you have a certain voice talking about something, it has to come from the right place. Again, otherwise people won't read it. They're not going to be interested because, we know we're not stupid.
So the thing is, one thing having that diversity is another thing having the right people who are diverse. You can have a completely different culture, different gender background. But if you've just grabbed them people off the street and said, read that, it's just not right. It needs to come from themselves. They need to be the ones who are actually putting their own passion out there.
I mean, that's something that, I mentioned that I work for a company called The News Movement, and that's something that we're really trying to do, in the sense that what's the point of me telling someone's story when that person can just tell them story themselves? So we call it handing over the mic. So it's literally giving someone a microphone and saying, you know, you tell that. I don't have to have my voice in your story. I mean, I might help you. I can help you edit it and I can help you obviously write it. But your story is your story. And obviously, whatever, the more I get involved with it, the more it's mine, which is a bit wrong. And I guess that's the problem that a lot of media are sort of tussling with at the moment. Moving on to technology, because, you know, Billy, who works for Women in Esports and set up this whole fantastic event, she sends a list of sort of talking points. And this one kind of particularly I thought we must talk about, and that's the role of technology. Because obviously with this meteoric rise in technology, we're all using it now. How does that help cultivate, or perhaps what are the problems with technology, or how does it help cultivate that representation in society?
I think anyone can sort of put themselves out there now, especially in the last few years with like rise in people streaming on Twitch during COVID and everything. It's just been absolutely crazy. With lockdown, people just thought, oh, I'll game, why not stream it? So many people are putting themselves out there now. We're definitely seeing a lot more diversity because everyone can do it. You can literally get your phone out of your pocket and broadcast yourself all over the world in a second. And that's just how far technology has come in just the past 5 years or something, which is kind of crazy. I mean, we mentioned 10 years on the script, and I thought instantly 1990s, because that's where my mind goes to for 10 years. But yeah, just in a short space of time, so much has changed now. Everyone can be online, everyone can be broadcasting. But when it comes to the corporations picking people for big official broadcasts, I think, you know, they need to think a little bit more about who's doing things as well.
And Meg, you've really used your, you know, technology has been sort of the foundation of your platform, really.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about like actually using technology, I'm terrible. Like I am literally.
You wouldn't know. You would not know.
But I sometimes feel like a bit of an imposter because I, being a woman who got into gaming through COVID, I'm fairly new to it all. So it still shocks me sometimes how much tech there is out there to use to sort of better your live stream and obviously social media as well. There's so much out there that you have to kind of like facilitate and use and upload on, and different things that you just need. But I have to say, like, for me, I think if you are the right person, I started out streaming with a £20 webcam and like the worst mic you've ever heard. It only came out the left ear. And again, I just one day went live and then everything sort of came after. So I just think that sometimes, I know it can be quite overwhelming when it comes to like all the gear that you might need to start live streaming, the technology that you need to use, also the platforms online that you might need to upload to. Just try it, because I think sometimes as well people will overinvest in the industry and then they'll maybe not enjoy it, or maybe they'll want to go off in a different direction. So, you know, I think sometimes live streaming can be sort of glamorized and look great from face value, but it's actually one of the wildest and strangest industries that I've ever gotten into, because you don't switch off. You're always, because social media is something that you use in your downtime as well, but you're using it for business even in your downtime. You're constantly live streaming, you're constantly feeling like you have to pop up content of your life, so it's really overwhelming. So I just implore anyone that ever wants to get into content creation, because that's sort of like my angle of things, to not overthink, to just do it, try it, don't overinvest in it, give it a go, and then see where it takes you. Because I think, you know, it's kind of like having all the gear but no idea. If I had all the gear but no idea at the beginning, it would have been overwhelming and I definitely wouldn't be here today. So as much as there is so much technology out there to help you, at the same time, sometimes just keep it simple, because it's more about who you are than what you use sometimes.
Yeah,
and
just
so
start small, yeah.
And that comes to your point about authenticity and just being yourself as well, because obviously all this, you know, you can do everything, you can buy all the tech, you can, you know, invest so much, but ultimately you just need to find your own voice, and that's probably what's so important.
Yeah, it is. Like, I see a lot of people going, oh, I've started streaming, I'm not getting any viewers, what's going on? You should do it because you want to do it, because you want to play that game, because you want to, you know, do your makeup, whatever you want to do it because you want to do it, not because you want this instant fame and fortune, because it's probably not going to come to you like that. But it is important that everybody, you know, if you want to do it, go ahead, try it. Don't let anything put you off. Don't think, oh, people aren't going to like my voice, people aren't going to like my face. Don't put a camera on if you don't want to. You know, it's that simple. But yeah, just go ahead and do it. Use the technology we have, like, so you don't have to spend thousands of pounds as soon as you start. £20 webcam. most PCs come with a headset these days, just start easy, start little, and if you like it, if you find yourself getting that following, then just continue on.
I think the same applies to, journalism as well, because, lots of people kind of ask for like, there's, journalism seems like a very closed world, like media seems quite cliquey, and like, I'm not one to, deny the fact that it's quite, there's very few kind of positions out there sometimes. It feels quite like impossible for a lot of people, but the beauty of where we are now is that anyone can jump on TikTok or anyone can start writing a blog and talk about things they care about, build their own voice, build that authentic voice they know is theirs. And that takes years to develop. No one can just land on that, because everyone thinks, well, how hard can it be? I can just, talk in front of a microphone and I'll sound great. And often for the first time you're like, that wasn't even me. No. But you need to do that so many times to realize actually like that's not you. And you can just, as I say, jump on TikTok, set up an account. If you're passionate about esports, talk about esports. If it's climate change, talk about climate change. And then obviously you've got this massive portfolio of work, which you can also take to people and be like, that is literally just me, and people are engaging with it. And that can also like take you places as well.
I remember the first time I ever started streaming, I was miserable after the first stream. I stayed in bed for 3 days. And then I got up and I did
Meg, that breaks my heart.
I know, because it's so, you are essentially like exposing yourself. You're putting yourself out. It's kind of like going on a first date with someone, and you're putting yourself on a silver platter to be judged by people who you don't know who might come into the stream, and it's really overwhelming. And then I was like, no, I'm going to try one more time, and I did it. And I had the best time because I just put all of that out the window, and I went, let's just pretend, like kind of like a stage persona, like I was the Beyonce of Twitch for a moment. And I then remember my first week, and I was like, how on earth am I going to do this for a whole year? But I loved it so much that I just kept going. But I do have to say that obviously I know that some platforms can be really difficult to grow on. The one thing that helped me that I always talk about was being able to socialize with people in real life, like networking. So I found that I got a lot of opportunities going to events and networking with people and meeting people in person who I may have known on the internet previously, but like I met them in person, we really got along, and from that, that's a connection, that's someone in the industry that you know, and opportunities may come from that. Obviously you don't do it for that reason, but most of the things that I would say that have seemed great, like Fnatic, like Charlotte Tilbury, that's all through talking to people and meeting people in real life and networking. So that's like the biggest thing that I hone in on when I talk to people about like how have I developed in the industry. It would be like actually getting to networking events, which is why I'm so passionate about there being more for women and LGBTQ plus people to go to and meet people like them. So,
and I think in terms of representation as well, it's making an effort to connect, and we can do that obviously very easily now, on LinkedIn, which is where we are now, but connect on our social platforms and make that effort to really kind of like listen to different people and people we wouldn't normally just like bump into in our day-to-day lives. Because I think, as we mentioned right at the beginning of our chat, it's actually everyone's responsibility to make sure that we are sort of forwarding this whole cause and making sure voices are heard, because it's harder for some people than others.
100%. Yeah.
Did you have any other bits of sort of advice we can say to people if they to sort of empower them? They're sat there behind the camera thinking, oh well, I really want to get into media, but I don't feel like it's the space for me. What would you say to them? Maybe Suzie, you can start with that.
Just go for it, really.
Nike were onto something when they said just do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, honestly, in this day and age when we're trying to have more diversity, we're trying to have more representation, anyone can do it. And if you've got the passion for it, you've got to have the passion. Don't just think, oh, I want to be into broadcasting. I want to be the person in front who has everyone looking at me. I want all the viewers. It's not going to happen if you're just, like you say, reading somebody else's information. You've got to have the passion to want to do it. You've got to have a passion for the field that you're getting into. But if you have that, then go for it, because people are going to feel that. They're going to feel your passion, your energy, and they're going to love it, no matter what you look like, no matter who you are, no matter what you sound like, even if you've got a stupid Geordie accent. People are going to enjoy it because it's all coming from you, and that's what you need to do. You just need to believe in yourself.
I mean, I love your accent so much. I get so jealous when people have these amazing accents, and I just sound like a...
Mine's so boring.
But no, I have to say, what was I going to say? I got caught up on your accent and I forgot what I was going to say. For me, the biggest thing that stopped me from taking opportunities in life was like being scared of failing. And I have to say, like, now I don't think there is a thing. There's no such thing as failing. There's making mistakes and maybe things not working out. But I think through doing things and getting things wrong and making mistakes and trying things that maybe don't work for me, like I tried to work behind the scenes in esports, wasn't quite right for me. I tried different roles. I tried casting, I tried hosting, I've tried lots of different things in areas of the industry, and I've fallen on what now I find to be like my safe space and my comfortable space. But I didn't fail at the other things. I tried them and they weren't right for me, and I made mistakes doing them. I said silly stuff like, you know, but I learned from that. I think the biggest things you learn in life are when you try things and you do things and you make mistakes. Like, I used to be so scared of failing, and I just think if you can get over that and kind of like reframe it, like the biggest thing you can do in life that will be a positive change for you is changing the language you use when it comes to talking about yourself and making it more positive, and like also accepting that, you know, not everything in life is going to go well, and that's okay. Like, you will make mistakes, you will do things that you don't maybe enjoy, and that doesn't mean that you're a terrible person and that you failed. It just means that it wasn't right for you and you can try something else. Like, I often find a lot of younger people, the way that they talk about themselves is so like, it's so negative and so, is demeaning the right word? Like, they're just so horrible about themselves when they talk about self-deprecating. Yeah. And I'm just like, why are you so, you wouldn't talk to anybody else the way that you talk to yourself. Yeah. Start to treat yourself the way that you would treat somebody else. Like, let yourself make mistakes, let yourself do things. And the more that you kind of do that, you will notice like a positive effect, and you will kind of find a place that I feel like is comfortable for you.
We have to live and learn. We live and learn. Now, we've got some questions from the guys listening at home. So because we're running a little bit short on time, maybe I might ask you sort of one question each, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So we got time. Fabulous. So Meg, how about this one, given that you're sort of with your streaming and stuff, how do you feel with criticism online, as we know that women are subject to more criticism and trolling than men?
Yeah, I'm not going to say that it's easy. I have a fairly thick skin. I come from a very matriarchal family who definitely took the Michael a bit out of me growing up. So I'm used to sort of hearing comments that maybe aren't the nicest, but you know, you get over it. Love my family. That sounds like I'm being horrible about my family. They were never that horrible. It would just be like, oh, Ginger, you know what I'm saying? But I just think, you know, there are days where I will not be in the right headspace and comments will really affect me. And that's when I know to switch off, come off on being online, and just sit out and just take some me time and have some mental respite. But the majority of the time, I will call them out. Firstly, I don't care if you think I'm fat. I don't care if you think I'm ugly. Like, again, I'm in a really good headspace where my appearance doesn't affect me, because yes, I will have good days and bad days. I'm a normal person, but what somebody else thinks of my appearance doesn't affect me. So those kind of comments, because I'm in a good mental space about myself, don't affect me. The ones that do are like the very misogynistic, sort of homophobic, sexist kind of comments that come from a very terrible place and are often quite horrible to hear, because you're like, one, you're stupid. Two, like, where have you learnt this? Where have you learnt this? I think it's really difficult to get your head around how someone can say those kind of things and be that horrible. But honestly, I'm in a place now where I'll call them out. I'll hold them accountable. I will definitely make myself heard. I'm not going to shy away. I'm not going to mute. I'm not going to be polite. I will tell them how I feel, and I will make it very clear that you cannot make me feel vulnerable. You cannot make me feel like I don't belong here and I don't have a space. I will shout back. I will say something, because I'm not going to be made to feel like I don't belong in a place where I do. And I just think that through doing that, I've noticed a lot of people also talking up and sort of speaking back and muting less and being heard, which I think is very, very important. I
think the thing for me is I can definitely relate to that idea of some days you're just not in the right headspace to enter any arguments. And actually, I often, I mean, you know, you maybe you confront it more than I do. If I get comments, particularly on my TikTok, because my TikTok's dedicated to women's sport, and it's a woman talking about women's sport, because that's what I believe in, and that's what I believe needs to be talked about more, and it's my passion. But obviously with that comes a lot of comments, you know, from men saying like, you know, well, I can't even say because it's too horrible. But actually I kind of justify it in my head being like, well, as long as I still keep posting my videos, then actually their comments are not cutting through to anyone, are they?
No.
And in the comments people can row, but actually I don't want to get into that because I know what I'm doing, I believe what I'm doing, and as long as I just keep showing up, then those comments aren't going to affect me. And obviously they're personal, but you do have to kind of get over the fact that if people really do want to be keyboard warriors and sit at home, then really get something better to do.
100%, like not to stay onto the question for too long, but like there's very much you learn by experiencing these things when it's appropriate for you. Like everything is like what you're comfortable doing. And for me, like online, when it comes to Twitter, when it comes to TikTok, if I have a negative comment from a man, I am not spending any of my time or wasting any of my time replying, because one, they're not going to be educated, and two, they're like an account with like 2 followers, and also their profile picture is Wayne Rooney or something. Like I'm not going to do it. If I hear a voice in a game talking to me, I will do it because I know it's a real person. But honestly, I actually think they're bots. I think they're bot accounts. And like I look at them like that because what they're saying for me is uneducated, incorrect, and I'm not wasting my time replying to them.
Just stupid little kids,
They
isn't it?
are.
And if it's not, if it's actually grown adults, that's just sad.
Yeah. You feel sorry for them in a way because I'm like,
who
I'm
are
so
you?
glad
Yeah.
I actually have something else to fixate on. I haven't made my personality being a keyboard warrior or being someone who spends the majority of their day replying negatively to people. Like that must be really difficult, like to be that negative and that horrible. And at the end of the day, you just got to think like, what kind of person are they? They're probably not having the best time.
I'm going to move swiftly on to the second question to get as much as we can, much in as we can. So how important is the concept of you can't be what you can see in terms of representation in esports? Maybe Suzie, you want to start with that.
You can't be what you can...
You can't be what you can't see.
Yeah, it's a little bit what I was talking about before, like that whole growing up and not seeing a big representation. It makes you feel like there's no real place for you there if you're not being represented. I remember when I was very young, my brother obviously was older, he had free reign of the TV. He watched all these shows about action men and all that, and there's nothing for me in there. Like, I don't really relate at all, but if you see yourself on, not yourself, but somebody who represents you, representation, more women, more diverse ethnicities, more gender diversity as well, non-binary, LGBT, all that. You see it and it makes you believe that you can do it too. Because it's so hard just growing up where everyone on TV and on the media is just a straight white male. And I've got nothing against straight white males, they're great, but can we have a little bit of difference in, for the young people who are growing up impressionable, never seeing themselves represented on their favourite game, like say Valorant or something, if it's just all, men all the time, little girl playing, it's really popular with girls, Valorant, isn't it? I see a lot of female content creators on it. But if they never see anybody in that broadcasting, they're never going to feel like they can do it because they think that's not a space for me.
But you even look like outside of gaming, and I feel like a really common one used is obviously the most recent live action of The Little Mermaid, where Halle Bailey was.
You see all the TikToks
Ariel.
of all the
And
little
all
girls
the
going, she
TikToks.
looks like me.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
And like, how can that not make you think this is such a wonderful thing? Like there's nothing negative about representing different people in all industries. Like it's so magical to see someone turn around and go, oh my God, she looks like me, or whatever. Like it is the most magical thing in the world. And I think if you don't have a passion or a want to create that kind of positivity and change, then that's a you problem, because it's happening and for good reason as well. Yeah.
Very quickly, I'm going to fit in this last one. So as well as diversity of individuals, what are the opportunities for representation of allyship in broadcasting and events like this?
The opportunities are endless, really. You just got to get in there and do it, I think, for allyship. It's a little bit what I mentioned before about stamping out that negativity from the root as well. If you see people talking negatively, trying to bring people down, it costs nothing just to tell them to shut up, Be an ally, stand up for people around you. Don't let that sort of hate into our space.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a very LGBTQ plus community on Twitch, and I am straight. So I honestly, we have so many ongoing jokes, you know, about like me being an ally and stuff, but it is like, I don't understand how you can't want to support people. Like, it is the most amazing thing in the world to have such a diverse, amazing community of people who are all different in many different ways for different reasons. And it's just so wonderful to hear their stories and to support them throughout their journeys and like be there for them and kind of like just create a space where they feel safe and comfortable as well, because it's just, you know, that's something that keeps me in the industry. I'm not going to lie, this industry is difficult sometimes and you wonder like, is it worth it all? But then at the end of the day, you go live and you remember why, because it's all these amazing people that you can then also platform and you can also support and, you know, kind of have there for you as well, because it's just, yeah, I think it's one of the most wonderful things in the industry to be an ally and support other people. And if you don't, like, you won't get anywhere. Like, I'm sorry to be blunt, like, you just won't. You have to support other people and you will find so much positivity and light in doing so. So, yeah.
Awesome. So before we finish, I just thought it'd be nice to whip round and say, like, if people are listening at home, they want to follow you more, follow more what you're up to, maybe your social handles, and a bit more info. So Suzie, maybe you can start with that.
Yeah, I'm most active on Twitter. It's pro_Suzie if you want to follow me. I just want to thank everyone for watching today, and don't be afraid to follow your dreams. What makes you different makes you special.
Cry.
How do you follow that?
I'm Meg Sounds Like Egg on most things. On Twitter, it's Meg Sounds Like GG because I couldn't fit in the extra E. But on everything else, it's Meg Sounds Like Egg. I'm live pretty much 5, 6, 7 days a week, mostly playing Valorant. So if you don't like that, don't tune in. And yeah, I talk about lots of stuff on my Twitter mostly, and more personal stuff on my Instagram. But yeah, just honestly, if anybody ever has any questions, like my DMs are always open. Like, I really want to support women and marginalised genders in the industry and encourage them to come into the space, because I want more girlies. So yeah, message me if you need anything.
Awesome. And then, so finally from me, I'm at Emma_mid on both Twitter and TikTok. So I do a lot of women's sport and sports coverage on my TikTok account, and on Twitter is kind of an eclectic mix of everything. And you can also find me on The News Movement. So that's at The News Movement. As I say, we're a social media company for young people, and we do a total range of news. So there must be something for you. So please go and check us out. We're on all social platforms. And my final really thing is to say thanks so much, guys, for that chat. I hope it was helpful to you guys at home. And as I say, we're all very open to messages, or if you want to get in touch with us, because we're here to help. So thanks so much for watching.